I was lying in bed, scrolling through Strava when I noticed something weird about Jessica's run from that morning. The route looked off. She'd run from our house heading east, about 3 miles, and then the GPS tracking just stopped at a specific address. 2 hours and 47 minutes later, the tracking started again, showing her running the exact same route back home. "Where did you run this morning?" I called out to Jessica, who was in the bathroom getting ready for bed. "The usual route," she called back. "Why?" "Just curious," I said, zooming in on the map to see exactly where her run had ended. It wasn't the gym. It wasn't a park. It wasn't anywhere I recognized. It was a residential address on Maple Avenue, about 3 miles from our house. I opened her profile and started scrolling back through her recent runs. Monday, same route, ended at the same address. Wednesday, same route, same address. Friday, same route, same address. I kept scrolling. 2 weeks ago, same pattern. A month ago, same pattern. For the past 6 months, every single time Jessica had gone for her morning run on Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, she'd run to this specific address, stayed there for 2 to 3 hours, and then run back home. My wife wasn't training for a marathon. She was running to meet someone, and she'd been doing it 3 times a week for half a year. My name is Alex, and this is the story of how a fitness tracking app that my wife and I used to motivate each other ended up exposing her affair, completed with GPS coordinates, timestamps, and 6 months of irrefutable evidence. Jessica and I had been married for 7 years when this happened. We'd been together for 10 years total, high school sweethearts who'd grown up together, gone to the same college, and built our adult lives as a team. We'd gotten into running together about 3 years ago. I'd wanted to lose weight and get healthier, and Jessica had agreed to start running with me for support. What began as slow jogs around the neighborhood turned into a genuine hobby for both of us. We started signing up for 5 kiloseconds, then 10 kiloseconds, eventually working our way up to half marathons. Running became our thing. We'd go on long runs together on weekends, planning routes through new neighborhoods, discovering parks and trails we'd never known existed in our city. We'd talk about our days, our dreams, our problems, all while logging miles side by side. About 2 years ago, we both downloaded Strava. For those who don't know, Strava is a fitness tracking app that uses your phone's GPS to map your runs, track your distance and pace, and share your activities with friends. You can follow other users, give kudos to their workouts, comment on their runs, and see their routes on a map. Jessica and I followed each other on the app, along with a bunch of our running friends. It was motivating to see everyone's activities, to give and receive encouragement, to feel part of a community of runners. Plus, the detailed stats and maps were fascinating. I loved seeing the exact route I'd run, my pace for each mile, elevation changes, all of it. We'd check each other's Strava feeds regularly, giving kudos to each other's runs, commenting with encouragement. "Great pace today," or "That's a tough route. Nice work." It felt supportive, like we were teammates pushing each other to be better. I never imagined that the same app connecting us as running partners would be the thing that exposed Jessica's betrayal. About 6 months ago, Jessica's running schedule changed. She'd been running with me on weekend mornings, but she started wanting to do solo runs during the week too. "I want to get more consistent," she explained. "If I run Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings before work, plus our Saturday run together, I'll really start seeing improvement." It made sense. I couldn't run on weekday mornings because I had to be at work early, so Jessica would run alone. She'd wake up at 5:30 a.m., put on her running gear, and head out the door. She'd usually be gone for about 3 hours, which seemed like a long time for a run. But she explained she was doing longer distances and then stretching and cooling down. "I stop at the gym sometimes to use their foam roller," she said once when I commented on how long she'd been gone. "My IT band has been tight." I was proud of her dedication. She was getting noticeably fitter. Her race times were improving, and she seemed happier and more energetic. Running was clearly good for her. I'd check Strava after her morning runs to see her stats. Her distances were impressive, usually 6 to 8 miles. Her pace was improving too, and I'd give her a kudos and sometimes leave a supportive comment. What I didn't do until that night, 6 months later, was actually look at her routes carefully. I saw the numbers, distance, pace, time, but I didn't zoom in on the maps to see exactly where she was running. If I had, I would have noticed much sooner that something was wrong. That Tuesday night, when I finally looked closely at Jessica's route, I felt my stomach drop. The route itself was straightforward. She'd run east from our house through several neighborhoods, following a path I recognized. But then, about 3 miles in, the GPS tracking showed her stopping at a specific address. And not just pausing briefly, like stopping at a water fountain or to tie her shoe. The GPS showed her staying at that exact location for hours. On that day's run, she'd been at that address from 6:23 a.m. to 9:10 a.m. Almost 3 hours. Then the GPS showed her running the same route back, arriving home around 9:45 a.m., which matched when she'd actually walked through our door. I opened her profile and started going through her running history systematically. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the past 6 months, the same pattern. Run to this address, stay for 2 to 3 hours, run back home. The GPS coordinates didn't lie. My hands were shaking as I opened Google Maps and entered the address. It was a house on Maple Avenue, about 3 miles from ours. A quick search showed it was a single-family home, recently sold about 8 months ago, according to real estate records. I zoomed into Street View. It was a nice house, 2-story colonial, well-maintained, nothing special about it, just someone's home. Someone whose home my wife had been visiting 3 mornings a week for 6 months. I went back to Strava and scrolled further. The pattern had started exactly 6 months ago. Before that, Jessica's morning runs had been more varied, different routes, different distances, different patterns. But 6 months ago, it became this rigid routine. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, same route, same destination. I cross-referenced the dates with my own memory. 6 months ago was late March. What had happened in late March? I pulled up my calendar and checked. That was around the time Jessica had started her new position at work, when she'd said she wanted to get more serious about running to handle work stress. The new position, new colleagues, new schedules, and apparently a new reason to go running 3 times a week. I didn't confront Jessica that night. I needed to be sure. I needed more information. Maybe there was an explanation I hadn't thought of. The next morning was Wednesday, one of Jessica's running days. She woke up at 5:30 a.m. as usual, kissed me goodbye while I was still half asleep, and left for her run. I heard the front door close behind her. I got up, got dressed quickly, and got in my car. I wasn't proud of following my wife, but I needed to see with my own eyes what was happening. I knew her route from Strava, so I drove ahead to Maple Avenue and parked on a side street with a view of the house. At 6:20 a.m., I saw Jessica jogging up to the house. She wasn't wearing her usual running gear. She had on cute running shorts and a matching top that I'd never seen before. She looked around briefly, then walked up to the front door. She didn't knock. She had a key. She let herself in. I sat in my car, feeling sick, watching that closed door. About 20 minutes later, a light came on in an upstairs window. I could see shadows moving behind the curtains, but nothing distinct. I stayed there for 2 hours, feeling like a stalker, feeling pathetic, but unable to leave. At 9:15 a.m., the front door opened. Jessica came out, now looking like she'd actually been running, slightly sweaty, hair messed up. A man appeared in the doorway behind her. He was tall, probably in his 30s, wearing just sweatpants. They talked for a minute at the door, then he leaned down and kissed her. Not a quick goodbye kiss. Hey, Aukis. Jessica jogged away, and I watched her run back toward our neighborhood. The man watched her go, then closed the door. I sat in my car for another 10 minutes, trying to process what I'd just seen. Then I drove home, arriving about 15 minutes before Jessica. When she walked through the door, she was glowing. "Great run," she said, giving me a quick kiss before heading to shower. "I feel amazing. I just nodded, unable to speak." She disappeared upstairs, and I heard the shower turn on. I pulled out my phone and opened Strava. Sure enough, her run had already uploaded. The route was there, clear as day, ending at that house on Maple Avenue. I took screenshots. I didn't know why, but I felt like I needed evidence. That evening, while Jessica was making dinner, I did more digging. I went through her entire Strava history for the past year, taking careful notes. The pattern was clear. 6 months ago, her running routes changed dramatically. Before that, she'd been all over the city. Varied routes, different distances, sometimes running near a house, sometimes driving to parks or trails. Normal running behavior. Then, 6 months ago, it became this rigid Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule. Same route every time, same destination, 2 to 3 hours at that address each visit. I calculated to the numbers. 3 runs per week, averaging 2.5 hours at the address each time. For 6 months, that was over 180 hours my wife had spent at another man's house, over 100 separate visits. and she documented every single one on Strava, probably not realizing that the detailed GPS maps were creating a perfect record of her affair. I looked at her weekend runs with me. Those were genuine. We actually ran together on Saturdays, following varied routes, stopping for coffee, enjoying each other's company. Those Strava records showed normal running patterns, with both our GPS tracks overlaid showing we were together the whole time. So Jessica was living two lives. Weekend runs with me, the devoted husband, the running partner, the person she'd share her workout with. Weekday runs to her lover's house, 3 mornings a week of an affair that she'd been maintaining for half a year. The running app we'd both been using innocently had created an irrefutable timeline of her betrayal. I waited until Friday evening, after Jessica's morning run that day. I'd followed her again that morning, confirming what I'd seen Wednesday. Same house, same routine, same kiss goodbye at the door. "Can we talk?" I said after dinner, pulling out my phone. "Sure," Jessica said, sitting down on the couch. "What's up?" I opened Strava and pulled up her profile. "I've been looking at your running routes," I said, turning the phone to show her. Her face went pale immediately. She knew. In that instant, she knew exactly what I'd found. These Monday, Wednesday, Friday runs, I continued, zooming in on the map. They all end at the same address, and you're there for 2 or 3 hours each time. "For 6 months, Alex, I can explain," she started. "I followed you," I interrupted. "Wednesday morning and Friday morning. I watched you let yourself into that house with a key. I watched you come out 3 hours later. I watched him kiss you goodbye." Jessica put her face in her hands. "Oh, God. Who is he?" I asked. She looked up, tears streaming down her face. "His name is Marcus. He's from work. He bought that house about 8 months ago, and you've been having an affair. I finished 3 mornings a week for 6 months, and you documented every single visit on Strava. I didn't think about the GPS," she whispered. "I just thought. I was actually running to his house. I thought that made it seem legitimate." "It did," I said bitterly. "I saw your runs on Strava all the time. I gave you kudos. I thought you were training hard. I was proud of you. I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I never meant for this to happen." "But it did happen," I said. "For 6 months, over 100 times. This wasn't a mistake, Jessica. This was a choice you made over and over again. 3 times a week, you chose to run to another man's house instead of being faithful to your husband. Over the next few hours, Jessica told me everything. She'd met Marcus at work about 8 months ago when he joined her department. They'd started talking, became friends, and the friendship had developed into something more. At first, we'd just meet for coffee before work, she said. Then he bought the house on Maple, and he invited me to see it. That's when it became physical. "And you decided to turn it into a routine," I said. "Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings. Like clockwork. It was the only time we could meet," she said. "He works from home those days, and you're always at work early those mornings. It seemed safe." "Safe," I repeated. "You mean secret?" She nodded miserably. "I told myself it wasn't really an affair because we had our whole life together. The weekends, our Saturday runs, our evenings. Marcus was just something separate. Something that didn't affect us. Except it did affect us," I said. "Every time you lied about going running, every time I gave you kudos on Strava for a run that was actually you going to see your lover, every time you came home and kissed me after being with him, it affected us. Our entire marriage has been alive for 6 months. I love you," she said desperately. "I do love you, Alex. Marcus he's exciting and new, but you're my husband. You're my life partner. I never wanted to lose you." "Then why did you keep seeing him?" She was quiet for a long time. "Because I didn't think I'd get caught," she finally admitted. "And because I liked the excitement. I liked having both the stability of our marriage and the thrill of the affair. I convinced myself I could have it all. Until Strava showed me exactly where you were running to," I said. What struck me most about the whole situation was how completely Jessica had documented her own affair. Every visit was recorded with precise GPS, coordinates, timestamps, distance, and pace. The Strava activity feed was like a digital diary of her betrayal. I showed her what I'd compiled, screenshots of routes going back months, all showing the same pattern. The data was irrefutable. "Why didn't you just turn off GPS tracking?" I asked at one point. "Why document every visit to his house?" "Because I needed an alibi," she admitted. "If you ever asked where I'd been, I could show you my Strava run. I'd actually run there and back. So it wasn't technically lying about running. I just left out the middle part about what happened while I was there." "That's insane," I said. "You created a GPS record of your affair thinking it would protect you. but instead it exposed you. She'd been so focused on maintaining the appearance of being a dedicated runner that she'd never considered that someone might actually look at where her runs were taking her. She'd assumed I'd only look at the stats, distance, pace, time, and not zoom in on the maps. And for 6 months, she'd been right. I'd seen her runs, given her kudos, complimented her dedication, and never once looked closely at where she was actually going. Until I finally did. I found Marcus on Facebook easily enough. Jessica's account showed them as friends and co-workers. He was 34, recently divorced according to his profile, worked in marketing at the same company as Jessica. His profile picture showed him at a race. He was a runner too. That's probably how they'd connected initially. Shared interest in fitness, in running, in that whole active lifestyle culture. I looked at his public posts. There were several check-ins at local races and running events. He saw me photos. Jessica was tagged in the background or mentioned in comments. They'd apparently run some races together while I thought she was running with coworkers. The house on Maple Avenue was his. He'd posted about buying it 7 months ago, excited about his fresh start after his divorce. Based on the timeline, his affair with my wife had started almost immediately after he'd moved in. I wondered if he knew I existed, or if Jessica had told him she was single. I wondered if he thought their Monday, Wednesday, Friday routine was a real relationship, or if he understood it was an affair. I wondered if he had any guilt at all about sleeping with a married woman. But mostly, I wondered how I'd missed all of this. Jessica and I spent our weekends together, ran together on Saturdays, seemed to have a good marriage. How had I not noticed that she was lying to me 3 days a week for 6 months? Jessica wanted to try to save the marriage. She ended things with Marcus immediately, promised she'd never see him again, suggested marriage counseling. She swore the affair was over and that she wanted to rebuild trust with me. But I couldn't do it. Every time I looked at her, I saw her running toward Marcus's house on that Strava map. Every time she wanted to go running, I'd wonder if she was really running or if she was meeting someone. Every time I looked at my phone, I'd think about how I'd given her kudos on the app while she was documenting her trips to her lover's house. The running hobby we'd shared, the thing that had bonded us, was now completely tainted. I couldn't go running without thinking about her affair. I couldn't open Strava without seeing those routes ending at that house on Maple Avenue. I need you to move out, I told her, after a week of painful conversations. I can't be in the same house with you right now. Alex, please, she begged. Give me a chance to fix this. You had 6 months to make different choices, I said. 6 months of Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays when you could have chosen to be faithful. You didn't, and now the consequences are that I can't trust you anymore. She moved out that weekend. We filed for divorce a month later. It's been about a year since I discovered Jessica's affair through Strava. The divorce is finalized. We split our assets and went our separate ways. Jessica is still with Marcus, according to mutual friends. Turns out it wasn't just excitement and novelty. They've apparently moved in together. I'm still running, though I deleted Strava. Too many bad memories associated with Yap. I use a different fitness tracker now. One that doesn't share routes publicly. One that doesn't create a social media feed of my activities. I run solo now, usually on varied routes. Nothing rigid or routine. I don't run on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. Specifically, those days still feel tainted somehow. But I run other times, and I'm finding that I actually enjoy running alone, without worrying about pace or distance or sharing my routes with anyone. I've started dating again, slowly. It's hard to trust after what Jessica did, but I'm working on it. I'm learning that trust requires both honesty and verification. I can't just blindly trust someone without paying attention to their patterns and behaviors, and I pay much more attention to details now. If someone's behavior seems off, if their story doesn't quite match the evidence, if there's a pattern that doesn't make sense, I notice it now. I don't ignore red flags the way I ignored the strangeness of Jessica's rigid running schedule. Looking back, Strava data told the story of our relationship's decline clearly. I just hadn't been reading it carefully enough. 6 months before the affair started, Jessica and I ran together almost every weekend. Our GPS tracks overlaid on the app, showing we were side by side. We'd comment on each other's weekday runs, give kudos, stay connected through the app. Then, about 8 months ago, Jessica's running patterns changed slightly. She started doing more solo runs. The routes became less varied. She was running at different times when I wasn't available to join her. 6 months ago, it became rigidly scheduled. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, same route, same endpoint. No deviation, no variety. Just this pattern that should have been a red flag, but that I'd interpreted as dedication to training. Her weekend runs with me continued normally. We were still running side by side on Saturdays, still connected on Strava, still seeming like a couple who shared a hobby, but those weekday runs were telling a completely different story that I'd failed to read. The data was there the whole time. GPS coordinates showing exactly where she was going, timestamps showing exactly how long she stayed, distance and pace showing she was actually running to get there and back. 6 months of perfect documentation of an affair, all visible on an app we both use daily. I'd just never looked closely enough. I'd seen what I expected to see, my wife running regularly, improving her fitness, being healthy. I hadn't zoomed in to see where those runs were actually taking her. Technology had captured the truth. I'd just been too trusting to examine the evidence that was right in front of me. This experience taught me several things about fitness apps, privacy, and trust. First, that fitness tracking apps share far more information than most people realize. Every Strava run creates a detailed GPS map showing exactly where you went, when, and for how long. That data is visible to anyone who follows you on the app. Jessica had been so focused on creating an alibi that she never considered that the GPS evidence could also expose her. Second, that patterns reveal truth. Jessica's rigid Monday, Wednesday, Friday routine should have been suspicious. Real training rarely follows such an inflexible schedule. If I'd been paying closer attention to the pattern instead of just the numbers, I might have caught on sooner. Third, that shared hobbies can become weapons. Running was supposed to be something that connected Jessica and me. Instead, she turned it into a cover story for her affair. Now a hobby I loved is forever associated with her betrayal. Fourth, that people will rationalize anything if they're motivated. Jessica convinced herself that documenting her runs on Strava made them legitimate. That running to Marcus's house 3 times a week wasn't really lying because she was technically running. And finally, that trust requires both faith and attention. I trusted Jessica blindly, never questioning her routine or looking closely at her routes. That blind trust made it easy for her to deceive me for 6 months. So here's my question for all of you. Do fitness tracking apps share too much information? Should GPS route maps be private by default? And if you had access to your partner's detailed location history like I did, would you look at it? Or would you consider that a violation of privacy? Let me know in the comments, because I'm still not sure where the line is between trusting your partner and paying attention to evidence that's readily available.